Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and let me know if you can't hear me. So here's our agenda. We're gonna do a quick warm up, teaching resources, talk about that, talk about routines and the first day activity. But you know, it's a small group, so we'll go where we want to go, I think. But that's our plan anyway. And I'm gonna have you get into this Google document, but not immediately. I'll give you the link here in a few minutes. This is the activity I'd like you all to work on together. It's called 3 Things in Common. So it's like a warm-up activity for maybe a first day or first week of class. So the instructions are to take 5 minutes to find 3 things that everybody in your group has in common. So it has to be something that's true about everybody, right? So we all work in adult education, would be a commonality, right? But your goal is to find commonalities. Well, normally you would do this with multiple small groups, and your task is to find a commonality that's unique or surprising. Maybe not the first commonality that you might stumble across, but like what's something that's a little bit surprising or unique that maybe wouldn't be true of other groups if we can imagine there's other groups of people in their own small groups discussing this. So the goal is to be investigative and creative, to ask each other questions, to uncover what those commonalities might be. Questions about what the activity is?
No question.
Okay, so let me break out real quickly. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So there'll be a little timer up on the top, you'll see. And then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay? Sound all right? Maybe jot down a couple notes if you, or maybe you'll just remember them. I don't know. So you're smiling. That seems like that's a good thing. What did you find out? Any interesting commonalities?
We have all played piano.
Cool.
We all have a brother.
And we all have pets.
Very cool.
And we like country music.
Yes.
All of you?
Yeah, well, I said that, you know, my dog's name is Johnny Cash. So that led to like, you know, music.
Wow, you found 4 commonalities. So when I first got the activity, when I first saw it, it was 5 things in common. But it seems, when I've done it with groups, it seems like 5 things is a lot. It's pretty challenging, so I've reduced it to 3. Well, so what was it like for you? And welcome, Monica. But what was this? What was it like for you? What did it feel like?
Fun. Right?
Yeah, it was fun. You know, sort of trying to figure out people that you have no idea who they are, just trying to figure out what could possibly, you know, what we could have in common. Of course, there's always something.
I do it the other way. I say as many as you can in 5 minutes. Because I've used this.
Oh, can you say a little bit more? Like, so that was one of the questions I had. Like, so if you've done something like this, or if you were to do it, how do you do it? So you do as many as you can, no specific number. Any other modifications that you make?
I mean, it depends on the level, but come up with examples. Sometimes focus on appearance. So you could give them some categories they can look at.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like in an ESL class, or maybe even in an HSC class, is it important? Like, how do you communicate what a commonality is, like, or to have something in common? How do you?
I have a slide actually that has twins. So where I give the instructions, it's just a picture of twins, and that they have so pictures.
Do you use the word commonality or in common? Do you use some other word?
I say what you have that is the same. That's what I would do. And then example, so I'll show somebody else who might have my color hair. We have the same hair. Pick two people who don't. They're different. I mean, that kind of stuff.
It makes sense to start with concrete things that you can see at the beginning, right? Yeah. So, anyone else, has anyone else used an activity like this before, or would you consider using it?
Actually, I did it in one of your workshops when we first started on Zoom, and the conversation got a little heated. So it actually reminds me of, I co-taught a lesson with Jermaine once at BMCC, and he does a lesson on, especially for ESL, so it's what small talk is and how to avoid like controversial topics and small talk. So that's sort of what happened in the group, and you ended them just in the nick of time. But that's actually why I didn't do the activity. But then I liked Jermaine's small talk and how, you know, how to differentiate that you're not going to just start talking about politics or, you know.
So it's never occurred to me. So what are the danger? What is the danger? Like talking about religion or politics or something?
A political comment came up in the group, and then the other person was like aghast. And then you ended the room, and I was like, woo. So I don't, you know, I don't think it would be a common situation, but it definitely happens.
Well, vaccines.
What's that?
Vaccines.
Yes, there are many, many hot topics, I'm sure. So, but I do think focusing on how it is important to be able to have small talk regardless. So maybe I'll try it this cycle, but I'll add that component first. Like, you know, how do you chat with somebody?
Yeah, that makes sense. Some guidelines, rules to the road or something in conversation, maybe. I don't know. But conflict it can be a generative situation as well, right? In terms of language. I don't know if you want to enter into that. So I think maybe we'll move on to the next thing. Is that right, Kate?
Yeah.
But I thought what we'd like to do is have you get into this Google Doc with us. But I want to show you how to get there. Usually when we do workshops, we just drop a link in the chat to like a Google Doc. We realize it makes it a little difficult to go back. Like, let's say there's something stored there that you want to look at a week from now. It's hard to find these links again. So what we did is we have a document for all our PD, and it's on our website. And so I want to lead you there. So let me show you. Does anyone know how to get to the CUNY's website, the Adult Literacy Program website? Like the umbrella website for our
Where
program?
the student writing was?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how to get there. Oh.
So it's literacy.cuny.edu is a shortcut to get there. So literacy.cuny.edu. I'll share on my screen just to show you how. So this is sort of the central site, and we have resources for teachers and for students, and there's different things here. But if you go to the resources for teachers section, we've added a few new links at the top. One of them is this CUNY Adult Literacy Program Professional Development During Distance Learning. So the second link under teaching resources.
Got it. Oh, wow.
If you click on that, it opens a Google Doc that we update frequently. It has some useful links at the top, but if you scroll down, it has descriptions and information about all the workshops that we're offering. including the ones that have already happened. So could we just use the same document to have links to the notes or the recordings or any other resources that were part of the workshop? So up here at the top is the teacher share we're in now. And you can see there's a link to a notes document. Are you all finding this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you just, I was a little distracted because I couldn't really hear it over some radio. It's like there's a sound.
So Karen, can you try muting yourself and let's see if that is what it is.
Yes, because I need to know also if there's a problem with my mic.
Yeah,
Check.
see, I think it's better.
And then I ended up, I totally, what, am I hitting professional development on the side?
Resources for teachers.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, Karen, it does, for some reason, it does maybe seem to be like we're getting some sort of feedback on your, on your mic. I don't know why.
I'll leave it muted. I need to know this before my class starts. Okay.
Mhm.
And then which blue link is it, Eric? Sorry.
CUNY ALP professional development during distance learning. So it's resources for teachers, and then under teaching resources. Do you see
Sorry,
it?
I'm gonna look at you.
So resources for teachers, and then this link here.
Yes, I clicked that, and then
Then you
and then
should,
after that,
and then you should get this page.
okay.
Hi, Mercedes.
So workshops. Okay. Yes, I'm there.
So then once you get to the workshops, you can click on the notes link for this particular workshop. So I'm sorry, this is a roundabout way of getting to this, but it means that it's always there whenever you want it. And I'm gonna put the direct link to this Google Doc in the chat as well. But if you want to get back there later, you can get to it through our website. If you want to just get there quickly, you can just click on the link in the chat. And then we're going to update with recordings afterwards. So this is the document. I think now what I'll do is we're going to scroll down and look for like the third page, and I think I'll pass this over to Kate.
So what we're doing here is basically sharing out resources that you've used and really liked, that you've felt to be very, that you've used a few times, not just once, that you've really liked, why you like it, and how you use it. So I added this one about Common Lit, and actually another teacher added more to it. So that's another thing that can happen is that maybe you see a resource that someone else put down, but you also use it. You can add more information about how you use it. So we're going to start with just sharing some of those. So just writing in the Google Doc, and then we'll be able to ask each other questions, and we'll also look at what the other group included, because there might be something there that was a bigger group of people.
Okay, maybe we could split up for about 10 minutes, because I think that there's some folks who work with in ESL and some who do HSE.
Sure. I think Kate, Mercedes, are you ESL?
Hi, pre-HAC.
Pre-HSE, okay, so me and Kate and Yeah. And Mercedes could go into a BE room.
One of the resources I used a lot last year is actually shared in Collected, New York. It's a website that is called Open Up Resources.
But
And
you could write it here, Mercedes. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, we're gonna go into breakout rooms. And you can, are you in the document?
yes, I am.
Okay. All right, so go ahead, Eric, if you want to make the breakouts.
Yeah, so Mercedes, I'll join you over there, join you, Tay and Monica over there, and we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Whoops. We probably interrupted conversations. I set the timer and then it just turned off the breakout rooms. I don't know that we weren't ready. I don't know how you all were feeling.
We were all typing, so.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back into a breakout room and continue talking about this, or should we move on, Kate?
I think it's enough. We can just talk out the rest of what we were typing, you know. So are you going to share screen, Eric?
I can, sure.
Yeah.
Show you we were starting to look at Desmos and graphic.
Ah. So I guess, okay, so I guess we can kind of, yeah, if you scroll and then people can ask questions about anything they want to know more about, I think.
So if I go back into Eric on that website, like you showed us, this will be here forever. This will be here.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So Kate, what should we be doing right now?
Well, we're asking each other questions about resources that we're interested in. If there's nothing here, we could also look at what the previous group did. But I guess in some ways we have different kind of areas of emphasis. Like it looks like there's math and ESL mainly represented here. It might be useful. Let's see. Well, does anyone have questions about anything that's up here?
I don't know what IXL is.
Yeah, what is that?
Who shared IXL?
I didn't, but I can explain it. I use it. It's a website that works similar. It's similar to Khan Academy, but I have not seen videos on this website. But what they do is that they have a lot of topics, very specific topics, depending on the grade. Not only math, they have social studies, they have science and reading and writing. So students have to respond to certain questions, and they also have the time there, and then it shows how long it takes for students to respond. Let's say a set of 10 questions, which are the free ones. After 10, you need to have a membership with them in order for you to be able to continue to use it. But I've used it, let's say, as an introduction for a class, just reviewing certain topics that we have covered before. It's really good.
What sort of reading level is it?
And they have many grades. They have from pre-K.
Oh, I see.
They have from, let's say, the letters of the alphabet all the way to, I'm not sure if college level, but they definitely have 12th grade. So they have
So,
this. Mhm.
so like you could learn about a history topic at all different levels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say for reading and writing, you can have a topic, right? Sorry, you can have a paragraph and they tell you, okay, find the main idea of this passage, or what would you change in this paragraph. But also they have maybe it's something related to lexicon, vocabulary, or they show you, let's say, a text message. Find what's misspelled here. So you have to, it's really interesting.
So I put it up because I don't use it enough, but what I like about it is that it's from pre-K to 12th, and it's based on, I think they use a lot of different curriculum, but you can have a lot of skills. You can have a specific skill that you want to hone in on, and you just type it in and you can decide what level you want to look at. And then it gives you problems. And if you miss the problem, it goes back and gives you another problem to work on. And you can have word problems. You can have, for math, you can have word problems, or you can have just actual problems that students work on. And you get 10 problems for free per browser. So if you have a few browsers, you can use them. You can use, 2 or 3 different sets of 10. It's a good way to I think, to practice if you have a specific skill that you want to practice.
What happens if you use incognito mode on your browser? Does that,
Yeah, I think I think we mentioned that. You mentioned that once. I think you can do that.
because it's probably saving a cookie or something like that to limit the 10 to 10. If you use incognito mode, it might mean that you don't have to use different browsers because it's not storing the history of it, maybe.
All right, well, that's a new one for me. Thank you, Kate. Eric, maybe we should look at the former, the list from the former group and just see if there's anything there that is interesting to people. Anything that anyone has some questions about.
So if you look, you can look at this on your own and starting on page 9 of the same document. There are notes from a meeting we had last week where people added other resources. I can scroll through it slowly as well, but you can also pull it up on your own. Page 9, change agent, FET, thought company, Zella, ESL library, ESL bits.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I really like ESL bits a lot, that there's just really so much text on there. There's whole books. And right now, when it's so hard to get on campus, there's such a huge collection and so much choice. And they can listen to it at 3 reading speeds. I don't know, Moya, have you ever used it?
You mentioned it to me recently and I just started looking into it, so I haven't yet.
Right.
But I think I'm going to start this cycle. I hadn't used the Common Lit before when we taught together, but you mentioned it, and then I started using that. That's been wonderful. So this will be my next
Right.
Because I
And
did
I-
see how many texts are on there.
Yeah, and I think that they're read by human voices, like Common Lit, you can hear it, but it's a robot voice and it's pretty fast. So any students who want to like work on fluency, or you just want to get them to read, you know, I think it's really good. Yeah, let's hear if it's a robot or not. Are you gonna push play, Eric?
The Fly, written by George Langley,
Okay, yeah, so it's,
narrated by Edward E. French.
all right, so it really puts you in the spell.
Part 1. Telephones and telephone bells have always made me uneasy.
Slow enough, right? That's interesting.
It's dramatic. I mean, it's just really a lot more enjoyable than, you know, so, and they have a huge collection. So that's all. I just want to say, like, I think it's really, I really like it.
Was there anything else that you're seeing that is standing out to you, or maybe stuff you've used before? Math teachers, I really recommend PolyPad from Mathagon. This is an amazing tool.
Yeah, I thought the editable periodic table was really interesting. I want to try that. I sort of forgot that that was in there.
I was actually looking for something like this last cycle with my HSC class, and everything was much too complicated. So
Right.
that's perfect.
Eric, where's the polypad? Oh. Is it on here?
It is, let me. So I will, it's page 11.
Okay, thanks.
Chat as well. This website, I don't, it's just has them, it's like, you know, in math, I'll just take a moment to talk about it. But in math, you know, classes, we like to use manipulatives, you know, tiles, dice, spinners, things like that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to log in here. Can I log in? You can use a Gmail account to log in. It's completely free. Just to show you, I'll just quickly, I'll show you like the summer class I taught. We use PolyPad all the time. I mean, every class, and everything we did is saved in here. So one of the questions was, you know, in a 10 by 10 grid, if you color like the outside tiles a different color, well, how many are there? This is 10 wide and 10 tall. So without counting one by one, whoops. Without counting one by one, how could you figure out? How could you figure out how many squares there are? So the one thing I really liked about this tool is that you can change colors really easily in order to sort of indicate what students were thinking or what they were saying. Whereas, you know, if you're trying to use like a whiteboard where you're actually drawing with a marker and changing a color, it's much more difficult. Like something like this, you can quickly just copy, change colors, you know, move things around. It makes like, and students can use this too. It's you know, it's free. I mean, it takes some time to teach them how to use it for sure, but anyway.
Cool.
Happy to talk more about it if anyone wants to learn more about it. Okay, maybe we should talk about some routines.
Yeah. Unless there's anything that you didn't have a chance to write and you want to just tell the group to share. Otherwise, yeah, I think we should go to routines.
So one of the things that we wanted to ask you about is about routines that you use in an online classroom to get students talking and help shy students contribute, you know, participate. I just found, like, for myself, I felt like I had a pretty good idea on how to teach in a regular classroom and get most students involved, like, and how to draw out students who weren't participating as much. Not that that was perfect by any means, but I felt like I had some strategies. But online, I suddenly felt like I had no idea how to do it. And class ended up being me doing a lot of the talking, and then a few students who are more confident or, you know, whatever, end up participating a lot. But then lots of students didn't participate. And I'm just curious what you've learned over the last few years on how to spread that around, how to encourage participation from more students. How do you, how are you equitable in calling on students, things like that? And so we're wondering about routines. Do you have any routines that you use or strategies? I mean, maybe, Kate and I could take notes in this document if you have ideas. So just to get us started, one of the ideas that was shared in a meeting recently was using the wheel of names. Have you seen this? It's a website where you can you can dump in a bunch of names and it makes a spinner and it randomly chooses a student. And this is Vanessa Williams from BCC, and she used it she called it like a trivia question. Where what was the last thing you ate? What's your favorite word in English? It was an ESL class. So it was a question that anyone could answer. It wasn't like a gotcha question. Karen, I see you nodding. Have you used something like that before?
Well, I was just exploring it. I saw it on the notes. No, I love that though. I'm totally going to do that. No, I always start with a write in the chat. I always pose a question. I tried to get that to start routines by write in the chat and ask a question.
What kinds of questions do you ask? Is this like the beginning of class?
Yeah, right at the beginning of class. I can ask, now I'm drawing a complete blank, but something related to the topic that we're talking about, or sometimes just, how do you feel today? So I can't remember right now, I'm blanking out.
Well, just to maybe get you thinking about it, or somebody else too. I've used things like at the beginning of the first week, like, why are you in this class? What do you hope to accomplish? What do you plan to do after you finish this class? Who is somebody you admire? I don't know.
I'm actually was pulling up some slides to see if I could remember, because I really tried to make this as a routine. I don't know why I'm not remembering.
Mercedes, go ahead.
For the first week is different from the rest of the year, but let's say for the first week per semester, because sometimes you get students every semester, I would do that. We would have activities asking them, hi, what's your name? Where are you from? let's say, why are you in this class? What do you think you're going to accomplish this semester? And how do you see yourself, let's say, in 6 months? And then that week would be more getting them to understand what they're getting into, and then just write down their goals, and just more specific. Let's say some of them could write, I want to get a new job. Okay, so what type of job? When do you want to get it, etc. So that, then let's say that would be the first week. They would have to write them down, maybe color these goals, and then put them maybe in the fridge, and they have to send me photos. And then that way they see all the time their goals, right? So they, whenever they're not motivated, they can look at the ending goal of that class. But usually throughout the semester, first thing we would do would be to ask how they're doing, if they found anything, if they found anything difficult about the homework, write down the agenda for the day. Every day, write down the agenda for the day, and just let them know, hey, maybe today this topic we might work it, but just in case, I'm just going to throw it out there. Yeah, so that would be it. Just ask them how they're doing, because many students usually throughout the semester, I feel that now with the pandemic, they are scared to talk. So you just want to make sure that they are not scared to talk. So that's the moment, because once we get into the class, then it's the class moment. But just to get a bit more, not personal, but more as a community, you know, I feel that those moments happen at the beginning of the class.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks.
How do you make sure that all of your students are participating? Like, do you do anything to make sure that everyone is involved at some point?
Yeah, we usually go to breakout rooms. If it is a collective activity, I usually ask each student. I ask them, hey, okay, so here, okay, so who wants to go first? And then I just ask them like that. And if nobody wants to go, okay, so I'm going to call out names, and then just call their names. And then when they go to breakout rooms, I go to each breakout room, and they usually tell me who's not participating. So then I talk to the student and let them know, hey, listen, this is a group work. Everyone has to participate. I don't know. I honestly don't know continuously. I just want to make sure that everyone is into the whatever we're working on. But it's a ¿cómo se dice? Sorry. It's an interesting question, because when you start analyzing, okay, how do I make sure that everyone participates? It's not only one thing. It's variety of factors that have to consistently work on in order for them to be able to make sure that they're participating.
Moya, could you tell us about the No Man's Island activity? It's a poem, right?
Yes, I found it on Common Lit. I actually tried it for one semester with all 3 of my classes. Then we referred to it if things sort of felt out of whack during the cycle, would be like, oh, remember. But just the idea, the theme of the poem, and you know, that we all need each other to make the class successful. What does that mean? Not talking too much or not talking at all. So it actually worked. Actually, the reading that I read yesterday by Tina, she referred to the poem and the writing if you remember, she said, I didn't feel like a lonely island by myself. So I enjoyed it. I didn't use it the next semester because I had so many returning students, but I think it has a good theme, so it was helpful. And I always do the learning styles for the technology workshop that we do, as you know, just to get people thinking about how they learn, and they share ideas with each other. What's your learning style? You know, they give each other ideas, study tips.
I'm putting a link to that piece, your student's piece, because you
Okay.
mentioned it.
Thank you.
Moya has a bunch of her students' writing published on the same website we looked at earlier, literacy.cuny.
Are you asking about like getting to know you games first day? Is that what you're asking about, Eric?
I think it might be includes that. I guess one of it's just this question that I've been struggling with myself is how do I make sure that everyone is participating, and in that a few students aren't dominating, and then some students aren't just hiding, aren't just muted and sort of just passive and waiting for everything to happen.
I go old school. I use index cards, and if they talk, I put them aside. I mean, so I think sometimes it's hard online. There's a lot going on. So I find sometimes it's hard to manage my cards, but ideally that's what I try to do.
If they talk naturally, then you just put that card aside like they've participated.
Right. Sometimes I just write down their names of people who've talked, because I agree it can be very easy for somebody not to talk online.
What kinds of questions do you ask of the people who are not talking? I mean, because for me, it seems to me I need questions that sort of anybody could answer. It can't be just like, what's the right answer? But I'm not trying to catch people out. I'm trying to just draw them out.
Draw people in.
Draw people in, yeah. How do you choose what kinds of questions, or is that just true of all the questions you're using, or?
Well, it's whatever activity we're doing. I mean, whatever we happen to be doing in class.
Mm-hmm.
I also find that it's important to stop sharing the screen. You know, like I feel like when you're sharing and you ask questions, it's always the same voice or two. So I try not to share the screen for too long. Like I'll always come back and regroup and make sure we're looking at each other. I feel like that has helped me a lot, to not just share the screen all the time.
Because are you saying when you share your screen, you can't see your students?
They can't see each other and I can't see all of them. And it's just sort of like, but I feel like when we stop sharing, we can all look at each other again. It does promote more of a conversational attitude, and then I'll share the screen again. So I've really learned to not share the screen for that long, and then I'll just stop sharing and then get back to it again.
It's a fun opening activity, first day activity, getting to know you, that it would only work on Zoom. But I did what was it called? Run, find, share, where I gave them a minute and they had to find something in their home, like show and tell. You can only do that if you're home, something that means something that is important to you. So I give an example, you know, and it worked great.
What did people share? Like, where did they go grab?
Like somebody liked to cook, so they came. I had kind of a pretty low level 2 class, so they brought a big, like a ladle. I don't know what this is called, but I love to cook, you know, or everything, plants. So it was great. Somebody shared their love plants. So, and it really stuck with me. So then I could refer back if somebody's not talking. Maria, your plants look beautiful. Do you have any plants you can show us? You know, but yeah, they shared sneakers if they like to run, a favorite shirt, a flag, like a picture of their children. it worked great.
Well, we could talk about that as well. Are there other first day activities that you like to use, or first week activities that you tend to keep returning to, or stuff that you did in the classroom that you're trying to figure out how to translate online? Or
I think I had mentioned, I could put in the chat about the learning styles. I could send it to you. Jermaine actually had shared it with me from BMCC, where they have to fill out a questionnaire and decide what type of learning style they are, and then there's like, okay, if this is your learning style, these are some great study tools. And then they share ideas as to how, some people love to highlight or color code. People have actually influenced other people to try new things. So, and then they go in groups and they talk about how they learn. So that I do that every cycle, even with my returning students, because I think it's an ongoing process as adults, and that we're always changing how we learn. So I do that every time. And I'm surprised sometimes that people have never really thought about it before. Like, oh yeah, I don't listen as well as I read, or so it has brought up some interesting conversations.
I think it's also important, well, from my experience, set class expectations the first week as well, and also just help students join all the platforms that they're going to be using throughout the semester the first week, because I've had my experiences with, let's say, communication problems with students. Some students have received notifications, others haven't, because they were not able to join the platforms that we were going to be using, or didn't get the homework, etc. So for that first week, we also prepare for the semester. So let's say, and also class expectations. So we go over class expectations, and they tell me what they expect from the class and from me, and then I tell them what I expect from them, and then we figure it out as a class. And I think that them choosing what the main expectations for that semester is going to be helps them understand how the class is going to go as well. So that we do during the first week as well.
well, I think that is there one that we wanted to share. Let me see. Well, yeah, we already shared the 3 things in common. There, just by the way, there's a link in the document to some activities on Collect Ed. We're collecting, icebreakers, warm-ups, as well as all kinds of other teaching materials. You might take a look there for some other ideas if you need them. Other than that, I think we've sort of run into the end of our agenda. Kate, is there more that you would like to talk about, or?
I think we were going to talk about first day activities. That was our last thing. I guess we have talked about it. So I just want to talk a little bit about writing. And I know Moya can say things about this too. I mean, what I do the first day is I might give a quote and ask students to write about it, and then go into breakout rooms and share what they wrote. So, writing is also a really good way to create community, especially if you do it a lot, people share what they wrote. So Moya, you want to talk any more about that? Because I know that you do that a lot too.
Yes, I definitely agree that the writing topics I've chosen over the pandemic helped create more intimacy. For example, when Kate and I co-taught, we did the anatomy of stress, that was my section, and we did science, how it affects the human body. So we talked about all the body systems, but then students ended up writing their final essay on how stress has affected them. And, but that takes time. We don't start out right away with the personal part. It's we wait till we build as a class community more to get to the more sensitive topics. And then by the last class, everybody getting their stress essay and crying with each other. So I do think the topics chosen are important to creating what type of openness you want people to have. But yes, and then they do really like to share, even if they don't with me in the main room, when they get to the breakout room, it's like, oh, you didn't give us enough time. So I do think, and I forget to do it enough where, okay, just write for 5 minutes in your journal. So it's good to, I think I want to create more of a routine of just in class on your paper, just to get your thoughts flowing. The quotes are good.
Yeah, I use the quotes in the beginning because it's not so personal, but I agree with Moya that as you go along and it gets more personal, even if they're just telling you, you really can see the whole student, and it's very helpful for teaching them. And I write too, so we're all sharing. So it's a very effective way it's one of the main ways I build community, actually, because I don't know, I find in BE classes, students can come to class the whole semester and they don't know each other's names. But then if you share writing and it has someone's name and someone reads it like, oh, are you so-and-so? Suddenly the other person becomes a little more real to them.
Yeah.
So.
And even with some of the, for example, Jamal, who Kate and I both taught, his stress essay was very no voice at all. And then everybody else in the class read theirs, and some people were crying and couldn't read it. I had to, and then suddenly he was like, oh, I want to do that too. And he rewrote his whole essay and ended up being very personal about his accident. And, so they definitely inspired each other. And that's what happened. That's why I ended up with those 43 writings for the website. Was they all sort of started out the same. Oh, it was a pandemic and blah, So, but then once one person wrote that interesting one, and I was like, oh, but look at what so-and-so wrote and how specific it is and then suddenly they were just all writing such unique. So I agree with Kay for sure that writing is definitely a big community builder.
I get something on my email, quote of the day. Kate, do you do that? Because
no, but that's a great idea.
I don't know, they sent me quotes of the day in my email. And so I do read them and I put them on a list for later use.
Oh, okay, good to know. Yeah. Also, I'll have, I might have students, this was when we were in person, I'd have them describe their commute. It's something that everybody can do. And then you can talk about adding senses into your writing, but I think you could adjust it for the pandemic. Describe your house, describe the sights, sounds, smells of your house. So anything like that puts everybody in the same space. Everybody has a commute, everybody lives somewhere. So, So yeah, I think, Eric, you're right. We've kind of, our agenda has been met, fulfilled. But is there anything that anyone was hoping they would learn from this?
The resources are very helpful.
Yeah.
I feel that everything that everyone shared here, just those little details, for example, the quote of the day that Karen said, also the writing part, because sometimes I focus more on them speaking instead of the writing first. And I think because it's for my groups, usually it's really hard to write, just to express themselves orally, written, in a written way. But I think that just having it starting out easy with them, such as, okay, describe this quote, nothing personal. That's great too.
Right.
And then end up like Moya. So yeah,
Yeah.
those are the ways.
Moya, in your classes, is writing like a routine that students expect to do every class? Like before you talk about a subject, do students always do a little bit of writing? Like how do you make it an expectation of the class?
I mean, I definitely, because I'm a writer and I love writing, I definitely tend to be a little writing heavy. But I don't always have, like, sometimes I forget the simple things, like what Karen was saying about the quote of the day, or just having them write for 5 minutes in their journal to talk. I don't always do it, but they do expect more writing from. That's just sort of my approach. We do a lot of peer editing together, but I don't have, I think I should become a little more routine about, like, okay, every day they'll write for 5 minutes. I sometimes fall out of that and it becomes just like what they're submitting in Google Classroom and then we share it. But I definitely have a heavy hand with the writing. I can't help it.
Yeah, it's a good pre-reading activity too. I put in the chat how I will sometimes use it to get them sort of their minds in a certain space. And as they get to be more, so, Moya and I, Mercedes, maybe you too, they have to take the tape. So helping them see a reading writing connection, so like if you're teaching inference, you ask them to write about something without naming it. Describe someone being angry, but don't use the word anger. Things like that. So you can sort of help them see that, you're a writer too. You can do this too. And then they'll see it, that they can practice that as they're reading a story or a poem. So.
It's interesting. I don't know. I just saw a connection that maybe I hadn't really thought about before. In math, when I'm teaching math, I try not to put students in the position of having to talk about a math problem unless they've already had time to think about it individually. So I want them to have time to think individually and then talk to a partner or a small group, and then finally talk as a large group about it. So there's stages that they've had time to think on their own, discuss it, so they're prepared for a full group discussion. And I wonder if there's an analogy there with writing as well. Like, I mean, obviously there's writing for different purposes, but like the quick write, it's an opportunity to think individually about something before talking to someone else. I just wonder if it's a useful support, or how you, or maybe you're already using it that way for students who need more time to think about something before they're ready to talk about it. I'd see that quite often in math, that some students are ready to talk from the beginning, and other students just need a little bit of time. And writing does that. So.
Yeah, I think it works both ways also. Then if you're asking them to write something harder, like their opinion about something, and why they think that, to talk about it first. So they're rehearsing it before they actually have to write about it. So it depends on your purpose very much and what kind of product you want to get out of it.
It's funny that you're mentioning this because since I'm teaching all the subjects too, I have noticed that for students that it's reading comprehension is more challenging, they usually take more time solving word problems because they really don't understand what's going on. So we have to work in order for them to also practice reading. They also, I usually have them analyze word problems. What's the reasoning behind this word problem? What are they asking you to find, etc. So it helps with their reading too. So those could also be activities to do at the beginning of the class. Or analyze this word problem. You don't have to solve it, but what information is being given to you? What's the reasoning behind it? What are you being asked to find, etc. So it's I'm just pointing out that it's interesting.
Yeah, paraphrasing, that's a really good strategy. That's how so many of us figure out, if you can tell yourself what it means, then you know. So this was a nice, intimate teacher share.
Thanks to everybody for their comments and help.
Yeah, thank you. Really nice to
Yeah,
see
thank you for
everybody.
being here. Karen and Monica, just as an aside, I'm happy to help if you want to do some troubleshooting around audio issues. I know Monica's audio wasn't working at all, and Karen, you're having that. So if you wanted to stay on, we could try and work on it now or some other time.
Eric, I think mine is sounding better.
Yeah, I think she solved hers.
I adjusted the background.
There's no echo now.
I think it was picking up my air conditioning is what I think it was.
Oh.
Sounds like your little gremlins in the background.
It was very helpful. I also think I've kind of forgotten about the 5-minute quick journal writing and how helpful that could be. I never used it in pre-clip and I should have. And I like that you can make that part of a routine. But I know one question. So when they do a 5-minute write, do they generally share with the partner and then you move on?
You can do it different ways. They can share. If I ask them to write for a little longer, sometimes I'll just walk around and write like a sentence that I like on the board to do it that way. Of course, that's the board, but I guess if you have a Google Doc, you could do that. Sometimes I'll collect the free writing, and again, I'll pick my favorite sentence and I'll put their name. It's just a way. I don't have time to type the whole thing, but everybody's seeing themselves in print and sharing. Moya, what are some of the things you do with free writes?
Well, on Zoom, I often will put them in groups to read what they've written and then come back and tell me the most interesting thing that they talked about from that conversation. If it's always the same students writing that they think is interesting, I might say, okay, I want you to come back and tell me about so-and-so's writing. Occasionally I've had them do, if it's a smaller class, to share in front of the whole class so I can hear it too. But they do inspire each other a lot, more than I might expect sometimes. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to out Moya. So Moya does this thing called talent shares.
Oh, yes.
And that really creates community.
Yeah.
What is that?
So I teach 3 different classes, and because I'm always so focused on, and as you also play the piano as an artist, at the end of the cycle, I invite all 3 of my classes to a talent share. And I've had the focus once was it had to be a written, like written word share, but usually it's any talent. I've had people who are chefs take pictures of their recipes. People write poems, they share their poems. Ezekiel sings every time. So maybe half of the students focus on writing something that they've written. And it can't be like a class assignment. It has to be their own artistic self. So, I mean, I've made the exception a couple times if people couldn't come up with anything. But like people make beaded bags and they'll take pictures and then they'll show them and like, oh, let me see what you made. So every time there's tears or singing, it's really, I've had one every cycle except for the summer. And then we had a few students won the literacy review, was at the contest. So we had like everybody who submitted an article for the submission, we had a share for that. And then inviting an audience is really helpful, like Kate, or if there's someone besides a student there, it's like they come with all their makeup and it's like a big deal. We have an audience today, they dress nice. So Kate's been to mine. So having a little audience definitely has helped make it a little more exciting for them. So, but that's a little extra work if you don't mind doing it, but it's always a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it is. And those students remember each other because now I have 2 of your students in my book group and she's like, you're the one who cooks, you know? So it really
I
works.
know they're not,
Yeah.
they remember like who
Yeah.
Tina is a wonderful art, like her work could be in a museum. And I still have students from my other class. What was that woman's name she does?
Yeah.
And they've inspired each other to,
Yeah.
you know, it was pleasantly surprising that on Zoom it could have been so successful. You know, and then of course Ezekiel singing helps. You know, our student, he's always singing. Thank you, Mercedes.
Okay, so it's 3:30. So Monica's gonna stay on. Okay.
Good to meet
everybody.
you. Nice to meet you, everybody.
Yeah.
Good luck.